Jake Morrison and his team ran through the jungle as fast as they could. Behind them, the invisible Vorthon base hummed with hidden activity. Jake could hear the sound of machinery powering up, but he could not see what was making the noise. They were still 200 yards from their shuttle when the world exploded around them. Warning sirens blared from the invisible base. Bright red lights flashed in midair, revealing the outline of guard towers and weapon platforms. The Vorthons had finally detected the targeting flares. "They know we are here," Lisa Hayes shouted over the noise. Suddenly, the jungle erupted with enemy soldiers. Vorthons appeared out of thin air as their personal cloaking devices deactivated. The alien warriors were 7 feet tall with gray skin and 4 arms. Each one carried energy weapons that glowed with deadly power. "Contact left," Danny Cooper yelled, diving behind a tree. Jake rolled into a muddy depression as energy bolts sizzled past his head. The Vorthons were good soldiers, but they had made one critical mistake. They were so used to being invisible that they had forgotten how to fight an enemy who could see them coming. Jake had spent hours mapping their base. He knew exactly where their guard positions were located. When the Vorthons activated their weapons, the energy signatures revealed every hidden platform and tower. "Lisa, guard tower at 2 o'clock, Jake called out. 30 feet up. Lisa could not see the tower, but she trusted Jake's directions. She fired 3 shots at the apparently empty air. Sparks flew as her bullets hit something metal. A Vorthon. Soldier screamed and fell from his invisible perch. Sam Rodriguez popped up from behind a log. "Where are they firing from?" Jake watched the energy bolt streak through the jungle. The weapons fire came from specific points that matched his mental map of the base. "Weapons platform, 40 yards straight ahead. Another one to your right. Ew." Team used Jake's knowledge to fight enemies they could not see. While the Vorthons tried to coordinate their invisible positions, the humans struck with precision. They knew where every guard post and weapon emplacement was located. But more Vorthons kept appearing. Squads of soldiers materialized from hidden barracks inside the base. They spread out through the jungle, trying to surround the human team. "We need to move," Jake shouted. "They are trying to flank us." The team began a fighting retreat toward their shuttle. Jake led the way, using his map of animal behavior to predict where enemy forces might be hiding. Every time the local birds suddenly went quiet, he knew Vorthons were nearby. Danny stumbled and fell face first into the mud. "My leg," he gasped. A Vorthon energy bolt had burned through his thigh. Sam immediately ran to help him. "It is not too bad," the medic said, checking the wound. "But he cannot run." Jake looked back toward the invisible base. More red warning lights were flashing. The sound of heavy machinery was getting louder. Something big was powering up inside the hidden fortress. "They are preparing to launch aircraft," Jake realized. "Once those ships get airborne, we are dead." Lisa fired another burst at an invisible target. "So what do we do?" Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Instead of retreating, he started running toward the enemy base. "Jake, where are you going?" Lisa screamed. "Keep moving toward the shuttle," Jake yelled back. "Get Danny out of here. I'm going to buy us some time." Jake ran straight at the invisible fortress. Energy bolts flew around him like angry wasps. He dove and rolled, using every piece of cover the jungle provided. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "When you are outnumbered, boy, do something they do not expect." Jake reached the edge of the base and pressed himself against the invisible wall. He could hear Vorthons shouting orders on the other side. Boots pounded on metal floors. Engines roared to life. Jake pulled out his last 2 grenades and activated them both. He could not see the base, but he knew exactly where it was. He threw the grenades over the invisible barrier, aiming for what he hoped was a fuel depot or ammunition storage. The explosions were magnificent. Invisible buildings became visible as flames spread across their surfaces. The Vorthon base flickered in and out of sight as its cloaking system failed in sections. Jake ran as secondary explosions rocked the hidden fortress. Behind him, entire sections of the base became visible for the first time. Guard towers collapsed. Weapon platforms exploded. Aircraft tried to take off from landing pads that were now twisted metal. But Jake's real goal was not destruction. It was revelation. High above the jungle, Commander Zix-9 stared at his tactical display in amazement. The empty patch of jungle was now lit up like a festival. Explosions revealed the outline of a massive enemy installation. All ships, Zix-9 ordered. Commence bombardment. Target all visible structures. The Coalition fleet opened fire. Energy beams and plasma missiles streaked down from orbit. The jungle erupted in flames and smoke as years of Vorthan construction was destroyed in minutes. Jake reached his team just as the bombardment began. Sam had managed to stop Danny's bleeding and get him back on his feet. Lisa was laying down covering fire to keep the remaining Vorthans at bay. "Can you walk?" Jake asked Danny. The young private nodded through gritted teeth. "Yes, sir." "Let's get out of here." The team stumbled toward their shuttle as the world burned behind them. The orbital bombardment was turning the invisible base into a smoking crater. Fourth-hand soldiers who had seemed invincible minutes earlier were now running for their lives. Jake helped carry Danny up the shuttle's ramp. As Lisa started the engines, Jake looked back at the destruction. The enemy base was completely exposed, now its cloaking system destroyed. Coalition gunships were already landing to capture any surviving Vorthans. "Command, this is Morrison," Jake said into his radio. "Mission accomplished. The enemy base has been located and destroyed." "Outstanding work, Sergeant," came Zix-9's reply. The alien commander sounded genuinely impressed for the first time since Jake had met him. As the shuttle lifted off from the jungle, Jake watched the smoke rise from the ruined base. The Coalition had won this battle, but not with superior technology. They had won because someone had paid attention to the wisdom of ants. Lisa looked at Jake as they climbed toward orbit. "How did you know where everything was?" Jake smiled tiredly. "I told you. Sometimes the old ways work better than the new ones. The animals knew something was wrong down there. They had been trying to tell us for weeks. We just needed to listen." Sam was bandaging Danny's wound in the back of the shuttle. Those Vorthans never saw it coming. They were so confident in their cloaking technology. "That was their mistake," Jake replied. "They forgot that you can hide from machines, but you cannot hide from nature. Every living thing in that jungle knew they were there. The ants, the birds, even the insects, they were all trying to warn us." Danny managed a weak smile despite his injury. "So we followed the bug highway and found the bad guys." "Something like that," Jake said. As their shuttle docked with the Coalition flagship, Jake knew this victory would change everything. The galaxy's most advanced military had been outmaneuvered by tracking techniques older than their civilizations. But Jake also knew the war was not over. Somewhere out there, other enemies were hiding behind their technology, thinking they were invisible and untouchable. They were wrong. As long as humans were part of the Coalition, no enemy could hide completely. Nature would always tell them where to look. The Coalition flagship's medical bay buzzed with activity. Doctors from 6 different worlds worked on Danny Cooper's leg wound while Jake Morrison sat nearby. The young private would recover fully, but he would carry scars from the jungle battle for the rest of his life. "The bone is healing well," said Dr. Kelth, a spider-like alien with 8 delicate arms. "You will be back on duty in 2 weeks." Danny grinned at Jake. "Worth it, sir. We really showed those Vorthans what humans can do." Jake nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. Through the medical bay's windows, he could see other Coalition ships arriving. Word of their victory had spread quickly through the fleet. Every species wanted to understand how primitive human methods had succeeded, where their technology had failed. Commander Zix-9 entered the medical bay, his heavy footsteps announcing his arrival. The alien leader looked different now. The anger and frustration were gone from his dark eyes. In their place was something Jake had never seen before: respect. "Sergeant Morrison," Zix-9 said formally, "the Coalition War Council wishes to speak with you." Jake stood up and straightened his uniform. "Yes, sir. Am I in trouble for disobeying orders?" Zix-9's expression might have been a smile on a human face. "On the contrary, you are about to be promoted." The War Council chamber was packed with officers from dozens of worlds. Jake recognized species he had only seen in training videos. The Altarians with their blue skin and 6 fingers. The tree-like Krathi with their wooden faces. The Energy, beings called Luminari, who glowed softly in the dim light. At the center of the room stood a holographic display showing the ruins of the Vorthon base. Smoke still rose from the crater where the enemy fortress had once hidden. Coalition ground forces had captured over 200 Vorthon soldiers and seized countless weapons and vehicles. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings," Commander Zix-9 announced, "I present Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison of the Human Expeditionary Force." The room fell silent. Jake felt dozens of alien eyes studying him. Some of these beings had conquered entire star systems. Others had developed technology that could reshape matter at the atomic level. All of them were looking at him like he was some kind of puzzle they could not solve. General Vorthak, the Supreme Commander of Coalition forces, stepped forward. The massive alien looked like a walking mountain with arms. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Sergeant Morrison," General Vorthak said, "explain to this council how you accomplished what our most advanced sensors could not." Jake took a deep breath. These aliens had PhD degrees in sciences he could not pronounce. They had built starships that could travel faster than light. How could he explain something as simple as following ant trails? "Sir, it was not complicated," Jake began. "Back on Earth we have a saying, nature does not lie. Animals and plants react to changes in their environment. They cannot hide their responses the way thinking beings can." He pointed to the holographic display. "The Vorthons built their base using technology that fooled your scanners, but they could not fool the local wildlife. Every creature in that jungle knew something dangerous was there. Captain Vex, the Coalition's chief scanner officer, spoke up. Her musical voice carried a note of confusion. "But how did you interpret these animal behaviors? We have no computers programmed to analyze such data." "You do not need computers," Jake replied. "You just need to watch and think. When ant trails suddenly curve around empty space, something is blocking their path. When birds refuse to nest, in certain trees those trees might not be real. When all the animals in an area act scared, there is usually a good reason." The alien officers looked at each other. Jake could see them struggling to understand concepts their advanced education had never covered. Dr. Zenth, a scientist from the crystalline Zaraki race, spoke in her tinkling voice. "This suggests that biological sensors might be superior to electronic ones in certain situations." "Not superior," Jake corrected. "Different. Your scanners can see things biology cannot, but biology can see things your scanners miss. The trick is using both together." General Vorthak nodded slowly. "Show us." Jake walked to the holographic controls. He called up a map of the Coalition's current battle zones. Red markers showed where enemy forces were active. "Here," Jake said, pointing to a jungle world called Zarian Prime. "Coalition forces have been fighting Vorthon raiders for months. Your reports say the enemy appears and disappears without warning." "Correct," said Commander Zix-9. "Our sensors cannot track their movements through the dense vegetation." Jake studied the terrain data. "Look at the migration patterns of the local animals. See how certain flight paths have changed in the last 6 months? The native creatures are avoiding specific areas. If you map those avoidance zones, you will find the Vorthon supply routes." The alien officers stared at the display. The pattern was obvious once Jake pointed it out. Animal migration routes that had remained stable for centuries had suddenly shifted, creating gaps that perfectly outlined hidden enemy movements. "Incredible," whispered Dr. Zenth. "The biological data was there all along. We simply never thought to analyze it." General Vorthak turned to face the entire council. "I am instituting a new policy effective immediately. Every Coalition reconnaissance team will include at least one human advisor. Their methods will be integrated into our standard operating procedures." Jake felt a surge of pride, but also responsibility. "Sir, if I may suggest, we should also train your people in basic tracking and observation techniques. These skills can be learned." "Agreed," the general rumbled. "You will head up a new training program, teach our officers to see what their instruments cannot." Over the following weeks, Jake found himself busier than ever. Coalition officers from hundreds of worlds came to learn what humans called woodcraft. Jake taught them to read animal behavior, track creatures through different terrains, and identify the subtle signs that revealed hidden enemies. Some aliens took to the training better than others. The Krathi, with their plant-like nature, quickly learned to communicate with local vegetation. The Luminari could sense electromagnetic disturbances that animals found disturbing. Even the highly technological Altarians began to appreciate the value of biological intelligence. Jake's methods spread throughout the Coalition fleet. Battles that had dragged on for months were suddenly resolved in days. Enemy bases that had remained hidden for years were discovered by following the behavior of local wildlife. The Vorthan Empire found their advantage slipping away. Their cloaking technology became useless when Coalition forces could track them through the reactions of every living thing on a planet. Vorthan commanders began to panic as their secret bases were exposed one by one. 3 months after the jungle battle, Jake received a message that made him smile. Danny Cooper, now fully recovered, had been assigned to lead a human tracking team on the other side of the galaxy. Lisa Hayes was training alien officers in marksmanship techniques that did not rely on electronic targeting systems. Sam Rodriguez had developed new medical procedures based on traditional herbal knowledge. Jake stood on the observation deck of the flagship, watching stars wheel past the windows. Commander Zix-9 joined him, moving with the quiet respect he now showed all humans. "The war is going well," Zix-9 said. "Going well. Vorthan resistance is collapsing on 12 fronts. They cannot hide from us anymore." Jake nodded. "Good. But this is bigger than just one war, sir. Your people are learning that technology and nature work best together. That lesson will serve you long after the Vorthans are defeated." "You have changed how we see the universe," Zix-9 admitted. "We spent so long looking at screens and readouts that we forgot to look at life itself." Jake thought about his grandfather's lessons in the Montana wilderness. The old man would have been proud to know his simple wisdom had helped win an interstellar war. "Sir," Jake said quietly, "there is something else. Intelligence reports suggest the Vorthans are planning something big, a final strike before their empire collapses." Zix-9's expression darkened. "What do you suspect?" Jake pointed at a star chart on the wall. "They are probably massing forces somewhere our scanners cannot find them. But wherever they are hiding, the local wildlife will know. We just need to start looking." As the flagship jumped to hyperspace, carrying Jake toward the next battlefield, he felt confident about the future. The Coalition had learned to combine the best of both worlds, advanced technology and ancient wisdom. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, enemies were hiding behind their machines, thinking they were invisible. They had no idea that a human with a notebook and a sharp eye was coming to find them, guided by the creatures that shared their worlds. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the most powerful weapon in the universe was not a computer, or a scanner, or an energy beam. Sometimes it was simply knowing how to listen to what nature was trying to tell you. And humans, Jake reflected with satisfaction, had been listening to nature for a very long time. The transport ship shook hard as it flew through the storm. Ice hit the windows like bullets. Inside the ship, 4 cadets from different worlds sat in their seats. They were going to Kepler 4042c for survival training. None of them knew they would crash. Jake Martinez looked out the window at the white world below. He was the only human on the ship. The other 3 cadets came from worlds far from Earth. They had better technology than humans. They had stronger bodies than humans. At least that is what they always said. Zexathera sat across from Jake. She was a Vorthak, a race that looked like large lizards. Her skin was green and covered with small scales. She wore a heating suit that kept her warm. Vorthaks came from hot desert worlds. They did not like cold places. Next to her sat Quiln. He was a helix being made of living crystal. His body was clear like glass, but it glowed with soft blue light. The light came from inside him. Helix beings controlled their body heat with their minds. They were very proud of this skill. The last cadet was Mordain. She was a Chitauri, which meant she looked like a giant bug. Her body was covered with a hard shell-like armor. She had 4 arms and big black eyes. Chitauri came from worlds with thick air and warm weather. "This planet looks cold," Jake said as he watched the snow outside. Zexathara laughed. "Cold does not matter. We have good gear. My heating suit can keep me warm in space." Quillen's crystal body glowed brighter. Helix beings do not need suits. We make our own heat. Humans are weak. You will freeze first. Mordain clicked her mandibles together. This was how Chitauri laughed. Earth people lived in caves. No wonder they are scared of a little snow. Jake did not get angry. He had heard this before. Other aliens thought humans were weak because Earth was young. Other races had space travel for thousands of years. Humans only reached the stars 50 years ago. Most aliens saw humans as primitive and slow. The ship shook again, harder this time. The lights went out for a second, then came back on. The pilot's voice came over the speaker. We have a problem. The storm is too strong. I need to land now. Land where? Zexthara asked. Her heating suit made a soft humming sound. Anywhere I can find, the pilot said. Jake looked out the window again. He saw nothing but snow and ice. No buildings, no roads, no signs of life anywhere. The planet was empty and cold. The ship tilted to the left. Then it tilted to the right. Jake felt his stomach drop as they fell fast. The other cadets grabbed their seats. Their faces showed fear for the first time. Hold on, the pilot yelled. The ship hit the ground hard. Jake's head hit the wall. Everything went black for a moment. When he opened his eyes, the ship was not moving anymore. Smoke filled the air. The lights were off. Everyone alive? Jake asked. Zexthara groaned. Yes, but my heating suit is broken. She pressed buttons on her suit, but nothing happened. Quillen tried to stand up but fell down again. His crystal body was cracked in several places. My temperature control is not working, he said. His blue glow was getting weaker. Mordain was checking her shell. 3 small cracks ran down her back. The cold is getting through my shell, she said. Her voice sounded worried. Jake stood up and looked around. The ship was badly damaged. One wall had a big hole in it. Cold air rushed in through the hole. Snow was already building up on the floor. We need to get out of here, Jake said. The ship is not safe. Get out, Zexthara said. It is freezing outside. We will die in minutes. Jake walked to the emergency supplies. He opened the box and looked inside. There were 4 emergency packs. Each pack had a small heater, some food, and an emergency beacon. The emergency beacons will call for help, Quillen said. But when he pressed his beacon, nothing happened. It is broken. The others tried their beacons too. None of them worked. The crash had damaged the electronics. The heaters will keep us warm, Mordain said. She turned on her emergency heater. It worked for 10 seconds, then stopped. The others tried their heaters. All of them were broken. What do we do now? Zexthara asked. She was shaking from the cold. Her scales were turning from green to gray. Jake picked up his emergency pack. Unlike the others, he did not panic. He had been in bad situations before. Growing up on Earth taught humans to think fast when things went wrong. First we get away from the ship, Jake said. It might explode, then we find shelter. Shelter where? Quillen asked. His crystal body was getting darker as he got colder. There is nothing here but snow. Jake looked out through the hole in the ship. The storm was still going strong. Wind blew snow everywhere. He could not see more than 20 feet in any direction. But he was not afraid. He had read about places like this in school. We make our own shelter, Jake said. The other cadets looked at him like he was crazy. Make shelter from what? Mordain asked. We have no tools, no materials. Jake smiled. He opened his emergency pack and pulled out a small shovel. It was made of plastic and could fold up to fit in the pack. He also had a knife and some rope. From snow, Jake said. Zexthara laughed, but it sounded weak. Snow is cold. How can cold things make warm shelter? You will see, Jake said. He walked to the hole in the ship. The wind hit his face like needles, but he did not stop. He stepped outside into the storm. The snow was knee-deep and still falling. The other cadets watched from inside the ship. They thought Jake was going to die. They thought humans were too weak for this kind of cold. They were about to learn something new about humans. Jake started to dig. Jake worked fast in the snow. The wind tried to push him down, but he kept digging. He used his small shovel to cut blocks of snow. Each block was the same size, about as big as a brick. Inside the broken ship, the 3 alien cadets watched. They did not understand what Jake was doing. "He is wasting time," SoupHFY said. Her scales were now completely gray. The cold was making her very weak. "We should stay in the ship where it is warmer." But the ship was getting colder too. Wind blew through the hole and brought snow inside. Ice was forming on the walls. Quillen tried to make himself warmer, but his power was almost gone. The cracks in his crystal body were getting bigger. "Humans are stupid," he said. "They think they can fight nature with their hands." Mordain was not talking much anymore. Her shell was cracking more as it got colder. Chitauri were not made for cold weather. Her forearms were shaking. Outside, Jake kept cutting snow blocks. His hands were cold, but he did not stop. He had learned about this in school. His teacher told him about people who lived in the far north on Earth. They built houses from ice and snow. They stayed warm even when it was very cold outside. After 1 hour, Jake had cut 50 blocks. He started to put them in a circle. He made the first row, then put the second row on top. Each block fit tight against the next one. The alien cadets could not see what Jake was making. The storm was too thick, but they could hear him working. He was cutting more blocks and moving them around. "Why does he not come back?" SoupHFY asked. She was lying on the floor now. The cold was making her too weak to sit up. "Maybe he froze to death," Quillen said. His blue glow was almost gone. Only a tiny light showed in the center of his crystal body. Mordain crawled to the hole in the ship. She looked outside but could not see Jake anywhere. "He is gone," she said. "The storm took him." But Jake was not gone. He was building something they had never seen before. Row by row, he made the walls higher. He cut each block to fit just right. The walls started to curve inward as they got higher. The work kept Jake warm. Moving his body made heat inside him. This was something humans learned long ago. When it got cold, they worked harder. When they worked harder, they got warmer. After 2 more hours, Jake had built walls that came up to his chest. But he was not done yet. He kept adding blocks, making the walls curve in more and more. Inside the ship, the alien cadets were getting very cold. SoupHFY could barely move. Her breathing was slow and weak. Quillen's crystal body was almost dark. The cracks were spreading all over him. Mordain's shell was making cracking sounds. "We are going to die," SoupHFY whispered. "The human was smart to leave," Quillen said. "He knew we would slow him down. They thought Jake had left them behind to save himself. They thought humans were selfish, just like their teachers had told them. But then they heard footsteps in the snow. Someone was walking toward the ship. A shape appeared in the storm. It was Jake. He was covered with snow, but he was alive. "Time to go," Jake said as he climbed through the hole. "Go where?" Mordain asked. "To our new home," Jake said. He helped SoupHFY stand up. She was very weak, but she could still walk. "What new home?" Quillen asked. Jake helped him up too. The crystal being was heavy, but Jake was strong. "I built us a house," Jake said. The alien cadets looked at each other. They thought the cold had made Jake crazy. How could anyone build a house in the middle of a storm with no tools and no materials? Jake helped them walk outside. The storm was still bad, but it was not as strong as before. They could see a little farther now. "There," Jake said. He pointed to something in the snow. The alien cadets looked. They saw a round dome made of white blocks. It was not very big, but it looked solid. There was a small opening at the bottom that led inside. "You built that?" SoupHFY asked. "Yes," Jake said. "It is called an igloo. My people have been building them for thousands of years." Quillen looked at the dome of snow blocks. "How can snow keep us warm? Snow is cold." "You will see," Jake said. "Trust me." He helped them walk to the igloo. The opening was low, so they had to crawl to get inside. Jake went first to show them it was safe. Inside the igloo, it was dark. But it was not as cold as outside. The alien cadets could feel the difference right away. "It is warmer in here," Mordain said. She sounded surprised. "How is this possible?" Quillen asked. Jake sat down on the snow floor. "Snow is full of air," he said. "Air is a good insulator. It keeps heat in and cold out. The shape of the dome makes it strong. The body heat from all of us will warm up the air inside." The alien cadets sat down too. They were still cold, but they were not getting colder anymore. "This is old human technology," Jake said. "We did not have heaters or warming suits. We learned to use what nature gave us." SoupHFY was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "We were wrong about humans." "Wrong how?" Jake asked. "We thought you were primitive," she said. "We thought you were weak." Jake smiled in the dark. "Maybe we are primitive, but sometimes old ways work when new ways fail." Outside the igloo, the storm kept blowing, but inside, 4 cadets from different worlds sat together in the warmth. For the first time since the crash, they felt hope. Jake was not done yet. He had more tricks to show them. He had not just saved their lives. He was going to make them comfortable too. The alien cadets were starting to understand something important. Humans might not have the best technology. They might not have the strongest bodies, but they had something else. They had knowledge that did not need power or machines. They had skills that worked anywhere in the universe. They had survived on Earth for millions of years before they had any technology at all. They had lived through ice ages and droughts and storms. They had learned to adapt to anything. And now, on a frozen planet far from home, those ancient skills were keeping 4 young beings alive. Inside the igloo, the 4 cadets sat close together. The alien cadets could not believe how much warmer it was than outside. Their bodies were starting to feel better. SoupHFY felt her scales changing color. They went from gray back to light green. This meant her body was getting warm again. "I can feel my fingers," she said. Quillen's crystal body was getting brighter. The blue light inside him was coming back. The cracks in his body stopped growing. "My temperature control is working again," he said. Mordain's shell stopped making cracking sounds. The cold was not getting through anymore. Her forearms stopped shaking. "How did you know this would work?" she asked Jake. Jake was taking things out of his emergency pack. "My grandfather taught me," he said. "He lived in Alaska. That is a cold place on Earth. He learned from the Inuit people. They are humans who lived in ice and snow for thousands of years." "Your grandfather was a warrior?" Quillen asked. Jake laughed. "No, he was a teacher, but on Earth everyone learns survival skills. We have to. Our planet has many different climates. Hot deserts, frozen mountains, thick jungles. Humans had to learn to live everywhere." Jake pulled out a small metal container from his pack. It was a portable stove that used chemical fuel. All the cadets had one in their emergency packs. "The stoves work," Mordain said. "We tried them in the ship. They all broke." "You tried them in the cold wind," Jake said. "Wind blows out the flame. In here there is no wind." Jake set up the stove in the middle of the igloo. He lit it with a spark lighter. A small blue flame appeared. The flame did not move or shake. It burned steady and bright. The alien cadets watched the flame. It was the first warm light they had seen since the crash. It made them feel safe. "Now we need water," Jake said. He took out a small metal pot. He went to the wall of the igloo and scraped off some clean snow. He put the snow in the pot and set it on the stove. "You are going to melt snow?" SoupHFY asked. "Yes," Jake said. "Snow is just frozen water. When you heat it, it becomes water again." The alien cadets had never thought about this. On their homeworlds, they had machines that made water. They had never needed to melt snow. While the snow melted, Jake took out packets of food from all 4 emergency packs. The packets contained dried vegetables, dried meat, and flavor powder. "The emergency food tastes bad," Quillen said. "Not when you cook it right," Jake said. When the snow became water, Jake added the dried food to the pot. He stirred it with a small spoon. Soon the igloo filled with the smell of cooking food. The alien cadets breathed in the smell. They had been hungry since the crash, but the cold made them forget about food. Now their stomachs started to rumble. "It smells good," Mordain said. She was surprised. Emergency food was not supposed to smell good. "Food always tastes better when you are cold and hungry," Jake said, "and when you cook it with care." Jake stirred the soup slowly. He added a little, more water when it got too thick. He tasted it and added more flavor powder. "How do you know how to cook?" Zexathara asked. "All humans learn to cook," Jake said. "We learn when we are children. My mother taught me. Her mother taught her. We pass the knowledge down through families." "On my world, machines cook our food," Quiln said. "On mine too," said Mordain. "What happens if the machines break?" Jake asked. The alien cadets thought about this. They had never wondered what would happen if their machines stopped working. After 20 minutes, the soup was ready. Jake poured it into 4 cups from the emergency packs. The soup was hot and steaming. Jake gave a cup to each cadet. "Be careful," he said. "It is very hot." The alien cadets took small sips. Their eyes went wide. "This is delicious," Zexathara said. "How did you make emergency food taste so good?" Quiln asked. "Time and patience," Jake said, "and knowing that good food makes everything better." They drank their soup slowly. The hot liquid warmed their bodies from the inside. They felt stronger with each sip. "I feel much better," Mordain said. "Hot food and warm shelter," Jake said. "These are the 2 most important things for survival." "But how did you know all this?" Quiln asked. "Did they teach you in military school?" Jake shook his head. "I learned this when I was young. All human children learn survival skills. We go camping with our families. We learn to make fire, build shelter, find food, and purify water." "Why?" Zexathara asked. "You have technology too." "Because technology can fail," Jake said. "Machines break, power runs out, but knowledge lasts forever. Skills never leave you." The alien cadets were quiet for a long time. They thought about their own childhoods. They had learned to use computers and machines. They had studied math and science, but they had never learned to take care of themselves without technology. "We never learned these things," Mordain said. "Your worlds are more stable than Earth," Jake said. "You did not need to learn, but humans came from a dangerous planet. We had to be ready for anything." "Tell us about Earth," Quiln said. Jake smiled. "Earth has every kind of weather you can think of. Hurricanes that can destroy cities, earthquakes that split the ground, volcanoes that burn everything, blizzards that last for weeks." "That sounds terrible," Zexathara said. "It was hard." Jake agreed. "But it made us strong. It made us smart. We learned to work together when things got bad. We learned to never give up." "Is that why you did not panic when we crashed?" Mordain asked. "Yes," Jake said. "Panic makes you stupid. When things go wrong, you need to think clearly. You need to make a plan. You need to work step by step." The alien cadets finished their soup. They felt warm and full for the first time since the crash. "What do we do now?" Quiln asked. "Now we wait," Jake said. "The storm will end. Then rescue ships will come looking for us." "How do you know they will find us?" Zexathara asked. "Because they know we crashed," Jake said. "They know where we were going. They will search until they find us." Jake was right. But he knew it might take days for rescue to come. The storm was too strong for ships to fly safely. They would have to wait for clear weather. "Will this igloo last that long?" Mordain asked. "If we take care of it," Jake said. "We need to check the walls every day. If blocks fall, we put them back. If cracks appear, we fix them." "You will teach us?" Quiln asked. "Of course," Jake said. "We are a team now. We all need to know how to survive." The alien cadets looked at each other, then at Jake. They were beginning to understand something important. They had always thought humans were inferior because they were new to space travel. But maybe being new was not a bad thing. Maybe it meant humans still remembered important things that other races had forgotten. Outside, the storm continued to blow, but inside the igloo, 4 cadets from different worlds shared warmth and food and hope. And for the first time since they met, the alien cadets saw Jake not as a primitive human but as their teacher and their friend.